They called me the disappointment, the one who never made it. And I believed them until one night, a man who had killed enemies in the dark stood up straight, looked me in the eyes and saluted me. Here is the story of how one moment at a party changed everything. My family thought they knew about me and what it felt like to finally be seen after years of being invisible. My sister Elena always had a way of making me feel small without raising her voice. She didn't need to scream. She just had this calm, confident way of looking at me like I was something she had accidentally stepped on. And at every family gathering, she found a way to remind everyone, and me, exactly where I stood. I was the one who didn't finish college the traditional way, the one who didn't have a fancy job title or a big house, the one who wasted her potential, according to our mother. While Elena climbed every ladder in sight, career, social life, relationships, I seemed to disappear. But what my family didn't know, what I never talked about, was where I had actually been. Elena got engaged to Marcus. Big guy, quiet, the kind of man who walked into a room and people just automatically moved out of his way. He was former military, Navy SEAL to be exact. And honestly, when I first heard that, I thought, great, another person in her life, who is going to be perfect and make me feel worse just by existing. The engagement party was held at a fancy venue. Chandeliers, white tablecloths, waiters in black suits carrying little glasses of things I couldn't pronounce. My family was dressed up and glowing. Elena was in a red dress looking like a movie star. And me, I walked in and immediately felt what I always felt in rooms like that. Out of place. My aunt spotted me first. She gave me that smile. You know, the one. The smile that says, oh, you came, instead of, oh, I'm glad you came. Then came my mother, who hugged me and immediately whispered, please don't make tonight about yourself. As if I ever did. As if I ever could. Elena made her rounds. When she finally got to me, she pulled me into a hug that was more for the people watching than for me. Then she laughed, that soft, musical laugh of hers, and said to the small circle around us, this is my little sister. She's still figuring things out. And everyone smiled politely, the way people do when they feel a little sorry for someone, but don't want to say it out loud. Still figuring things out? I was 31 years old. I got a glass of water and stood near the edge of the room. I watched people talk and laugh and celebrate. Elena, I thought about leaving early. I thought about all the ways I could have been somewhere else that night. I had gotten good at disappearing inside my own head at these events. That's when Marcus walked over. He wasn't smiling the way people smile when they're just being polite. He looked at me directly, like he was really trying to see something. He extended his hand and said, you must be the sister, not the other. Sister, not Elena's little sister, just the sister. I shook his hand and said something forgettable. He asked me what I did, and here is the moment that I always dreaded at parties, because my answer never sounded impressive enough. I told him I had served military and that I had done some other work after that, which I wasn't really able to talk about in detail. Something shifted in his face. Not surprise exactly, more like recognition. He asked me which branch. I told him. He asked a few more questions, the kind of specific questions that only someone who has been in that world would know to ask. And with every answer I gave, I watched his expression change from polite interest to something much more serious. Then he asked a question that nobody, not one person at that party, not one member of my family, had ever asked me. He asked what my rank was when I left, I told him. And Marcus, this large, calm, former Navy SEAL who had barely changed his expression all evening, stopped, just completely stopped. He straightened up. And then, right there in the middle of his own engagement party, surrounded by crystal glasses and chandelier light and my entire family watching, and he saluted me. A real salute, the kind you don't give to just anyone. The room went quiet, not all at once, but like a wave. People turned to look. My aunt stopped mid-sentence. My mother's mouth opened slightly. And Elena? Elena looked at Marcus, like he had just spoken in a language she didn't know existed. He held the salute for a moment, then lowered his hand and said quietly, I didn't know. Nobody told me. I'm sorry for what you've had to sit through tonight. I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. What most people don't know, what my family never knew because I never told them, because I never wanted to make it a thing, was that I had spent years doing work that didn't come with a press release. The kind of service that doesn't get a parade or a framed certificate on the wall. The kind where you sign papers agreeing to never fully explain what you did or where you went. I left quietly. I came home quietly. And my family filled in the silence with their own story about who I was. A failure. Someone still figuring things out. There is research, actual psychology research, that shows people form their identity in large part through how the people closest to them see them. When your family gives you a label early in life, your brain starts to accept it. You start to wear it. You start to expect that everyone sees what your family sees. And slowly, without realizing it, you stop correcting the record. Because every time you try, it feels like you're begging for something you should already have. That is what years of family dinners and quiet looks and bless her heart comments do to a person. And Marcus, a man I had met 40 minutes ago, undid some of that. Not by saying I was great, not by throwing compliments at me, but by doing one thing that meant everything in the world he came from. He showed respect. After that, the party shifted. My uncle came over and asked me questions, real ones. My cousin, who had always treated me like background noise, sat with me for almost an hour. Even my mother found a way to stand next to me with something closer to pride than pity. Elena pulled me aside near the end of the night. She was quieter than usual. She said she didn't know. She said she wished I had told her. And I looked at her and said, gently without anger, because I was too tired for anger, that I had tried. More than once. But she had already decided who I was a long time ago. And there wasn't much room left for a different version. She didn't have a response to that. For maybe the first time in our lives, Elena had nothing to say. I drove home alone that night. The roads were dark and quiet, and I thought about all the versions of myself I had let other people build for me. The failure, the one still figuring it out, the one who never quite made it. And I thought about Marcus straightening his back and raising his hand. Here is the thing about being unseen for a long time. When someone finally sees you, it doesn't feel like relief. It feels more like grief. Grief for all the time you spent shrinking. All the rooms you stood at the edges of. All the family dinners where you smiled through descriptions of yourself that weren't true. But it also feels like a door opening. You don't need a Navy SEAL at a party to validate your life. But you do need to stop letting the wrong people write your story. The people who have known you the longest are not always the people who know you the best. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a room full of people who've already made up their minds about you is simply know the truth about yourself, even when you're the only one in the room who does. That night taught me that silence is not the same as nothing, and unseen is not the same as unworthy. If this story hit something inside you, the video on screen right now will hit even harder. Go watch it.